Hi there. We've made it to now Stag Hill. Stag Hill is the location of what had been the Queen's Council camp, Camp Man. It opened in 1930. At the time, every borough had their camp. They were known as borough camps. Camp Man was named after the council presidents, Aldrich Man, and it was the last camp to move out of Kanawaki to TMR, and it was started with council executive Charles Heistend and camp director Joseph Brinton, and at that time there were many camps that had an eternal flame. They went by different names. The Fire of Cheer. We know of one at Camp Brooklyn in Kanawaki as the Fire of Cheer. And then when they moved to TMR, Shashuga still kept the light glowing and built a pavilion. And it went by Eternal Flames, Everlasting Flames. But it was a common practice that a fire would be lit on the first day of summer camp, and it would represent the joy, the cheerfulness, the friendships of that kind of bonding experience here at camp. And then on the last day of camp, it would be extinguished, and the spirit of cheerfulness would be brought back home. So that existed in New York, we know for sure, in the Brooklyn camps. And then in 1936, Swanakee decided that there should be an everlasting fire here at Camp Man. Well, they lit the first fire in 1936. We don't know, it probably was on this location or somewhere close to here. There was an Indian ceremony coming across Crystal Lake. But over the course of that very summer of 1936, the director and the council executive decided to build something more substantial. This was, you know, a point of pride. And so they encouraged, they asked one of the scoutmasters. At the time, every campsite had a scoutmaster, and a man by the name of A.G. Jeffrey was asked to design something. And he was an engineer with Bell Labs, Troop 17 in Elmhurst, Queens. And he came up with this idea, and everyone endorsed it. And they sent out a campaign to collect stones. And they thought if everyone contributed stones, it would symbolize this cheerfulness and this cooperation. And so they got here. Frank can point out a couple.
We have Pennsylvania, Iowa, Vermont, Utah, New Jersey. There's even one here from Camp Siwanoy, some foreign countries, Mexico, Chile, have sent stones. So it's friendship from scouting all over the country and even around the world. This tower is also synonymous with the Order of the Arrow, and we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Order of the Arrow in New York City. And one of the projects that we'd like to do is to rehab the tower and bring it back to its original glory by adding the second tier onto the top. So that's a project that we're working on now.
Yeah, that's exactly. What happened was there was an act of vandalism. I know from my vigil ceremony in 1979, everything was here. We had the flame, we had the bust, and just a little mention of the bust that had been here. That was what was vandalized. And Jack used to tell this story of how it was a bust of his brother, because he was a Camp Man camper in the 30s, and that when Norman Rockwell came to TMR, he carved a bust of Jack's brother. Well, there's no known sculpture by Norman Rockwell.
Well,
on
maybe
this
tall tales.
Yeah.
We remember history a little different than what happened.
But it's interesting in that, and Norman Rockwell never did come here, but Jack told great stories.
Oh, absolutely, great stories.
But with every great story, there's a kernel of truth. Because the original bust was very much like the bust on the cover of the Boy Scout Handbook in 1936. And that profile was done by Norman Rockwell. So Jack's little, so there's always a kernel of truth. So in 1980, there was an act of vandalism. The head was cracked at the neck. Things were, one imagines, or rumor has it, that things were thrown at it, and so the head was broken. And so in '86, when Swaneke went to restore the bust with this current bust, for security reasons, I think they felt it would be more secure if it was mounted directly onto the base of the tower. But really, the whole point of the tower is to host a flame of, an everlasting flame, an eternal flame, a flame of cheerfulness. And so that's part of the reason why this whole reunion is being referred to as Rekindle the Flame. This is part of it. Rekindling the flame also is a metaphor for us not being able to see each other, but literally rekindle the flame of the Tower of Friendship and bring back that spirit of friendship. It was meant to, you know, if we look at the dedication materials, they all talk about the friendships across the reservation. And I think we're all part of the Alumni Association because of that spirit of friendship that we've, you know, built
And
over the course
as
of
we
the
know,
summer.
you know, folks are watching this from all over the country, and we want your spirit to be here also. That's why we want to bring the spirit flame back and add the second tier back on and get the eternal flame lit again.
The bigger project is also to some site landscape improvements. This, you know, you're looking at the tower now, but it's really a history of the whole Stag Hill. And there had been a large building called Stag Hall, and this was built in reference to that hall, that it was on center, and then as you exited the hall, it cascaded down, you had the tower, and then you walked down its path, and then you had, what's quite interesting is a bronze stag. Where did the bronze stag come from? It actually comes from something that predates FDR and TMR, and goes back to George Van Allen, who had this property prior to 1916, and he had this club called the Sullivan County Turtle Club, and there was a bunch of wealthy printers and lithographers, and they would come here for a week to drink,
Enjoy.
hunt, and so it was a rich man's clubhouse, and then they got this Elks Club bronze elk, just like the one on Queens Boulevard. And when we purchased the properties, it came with Stag Hall. It sat actually just about here initially in front of Stag Hall, and then when this was built, they decided to locate the Tower of Friendship here, and the stag was then turned around to face the lake, and it existed until the mid-40s. We don't know really what happened or what the story is, but we have photos through the 40s of it. And so this landscape is a series of levels, and then if you know the site, it cascades right into Crystal Lake, and this beautiful relationship tying the lake, the landscape, the tower, and what had been Stag Hall behind us. Is that we do now have the lodge house, but it was 19-room kind of, well, I think we can end here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.